Hey, how you doing? This is John. This is John, and welcome to Comic Book Team Up, where me and RJ from the Fourth Age talk about nonsense and waste people's time. That's a pretty accurate description of our show, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, pretty much it. So, what do you have a topic tonight? What do you
Well,
want
I
to
just wanted
discuss?
to talk magic systems because I'm getting into this whole Dr. Fate thing. So I
Okay,
figured might as well.
okay. So good.
Well, first of all, I want to ask you, do you have a magic system that goes along with the rules that you're using for your universe?
Yes, I have. Again, as always, I play a role playing game, Villains and Vigilantes, with me and my buddies, and I borrowed a lot from Dungeons and Dragons, but then house ruled it to myself. To the group. So if anybody is interested in my magic system, I actually have rules and everything like that. So you can message me at johnslongbox@yahoo.com, and I will send you a copy of my house rules with literally the rules to my magic system. So the answer to your question, RJ, is absolutely. I have a fleshed out, statted out magic system. I could go into super nerdy detail if you'd like.
Well, we got some time. Well, I was going to go into super nerdy detail for mine. So you
Sure,
go ahead
sure.
first.
So yes, and then I'm extrapolating that magic system into. I have a magician character that has only cameoed. He will do his. He's called the metaphysician, and he will. His big debut will be in giant sized Punchline #1 with Bill Williams, wonderful comic. Uh, either in the spring or the summer, I don't know exactly when. He'll crowdfund it, and then it'll come out in Antarctic Press in comic book stores, and that'll have my group, the Metal League. It and then he says, I could reprint it and put it, so eventually it'll make its way into my comics, and I will put a date on it because it's kind of in the future because they're not a team yet. But I didn't want to just not have what Bill asked me to be in his comic. It was too good of an opportunity so anyway. But yes, I have a very very explicit magic system. Now, you said you read Doctor Fate. Doctor Fate kind of doesn't really have a hard magic system. It's kind of just like whatever the writer chooses at the time, right?
And yes, no, but there's a couple of writers that sort of try to pin it down, but then the next writer just goes with something new.
Yeah. What are you reading right now? What Doctor Fate are you reading?
Um, well, actually, I'm still stuck on the Immortal Doctor Fate before I want to go into the regular Doctor Fate series. But someone just mentioned the old Doctor Fate series. I got to look some of those up online. I want to
Oh,
read the
it's
older ones.
Tony Grigo. He looks like he's 16, but his soul is over 200 years old, and he knows all of the old Golden Age comics. He's a regular on my Friday night show of It's Clobbered Time, and he always. I'm impressed with his knowledge of comics from like 1960 and earlier. It's stuff that I don't know as well as I should. He fills in the gaps. So he's been getting all the classic reprints of Golden Age and Silver Age stuff. So he could wonderfully talk your ear off about all this, the original Doctor Fate and Wonder Woman and stuff. So I have to admit that the first time I ever saw Doctor Fate, I've always loved Doctor Strange. Always loved superhero magicians because I've always loved Dungeons and Dragons, and I always wanted to play as a wizard in Dungeons and Dragons. But for whatever reason, well, I know the reason, I'm always the dungeon master. So I never get to fulfill that, be the wizard guy. I play everybody. If you're the dungeon master in Dungeons and Dragons, you make up the whole game and everybody's characters in your story kind of thing. So I never get to play as a character. I play as like the world, the scenario. So I my friend Jimmy, he made up a character because he wanted to try out my magic system. And he's been playing with this character. His name is Dr. Richard Dante. Dr. Richard Dante, we literally were playing this character in my superhero campaign. He played him for 6 real years before he could even cast a spell. That's how long the quest took to learn magic, because it was that complicated, and Jimmy likes to role play. And he eventually well, he never made a superhero name. When I took his character and put it in my comics, I named him the Metaphysician and gave him a costume because he's still not a superhero yet, and we've been playing with this character for 10 years. Jules says we don't have to explain what a DM to us. We are the target. I like to pretend that people stumble upon and they're amazed by our wit and repartee and watch us instead of well, I love that you guys all do watch us.
The funny thing I find with comics is that, I want to go back and read the old Dr. Fate, but I always get waylaid by the Phantom Stranger. If I'm going into something mystical, it's just the Adams Phantom Stranger, the covers and everything like that. Beautiful, beautiful stuff.
I just want to give credit where credit's due. Ryan Banks sent me his comic. I got it yesterday. No, I did not read it yet. So I'll savor this over the weekend. My wife said she liked your premise. Thank you. Ryan was on my channel last week, and we a lot of comments. People seem to really like that talk. Ryan, message us. Come on back. Say hello to Vaz, George Morales. What are your thoughts? Oh, what are your thoughts on it, Jewel? Okay, now the chat is talking about Dr. Fate. Okay. I feel bad for you, John. When I became the default DM since my adventures were better, even though I wanted to play as a character. It's my own fault because when we first started playing, I was a character. A couple of friends taught us how to play Dungeons & Dragons. And then I was like, I have an idea. Let me do it. And then we kind of alternated. And then one by one, they all dropped out, and I just became the forever DM. I very rarely play. I met a new group of people out here, and I'm kind of itching to play in their campaign. Play Dungeons & Dragons. I literally haven't played Dungeons & Dragons since like 1985. I've been playing Villains and Vigilantes using my house rules for Dungeons & Dragons. And RJ's never played at all. So when I do hit my $100,000 stretch goal, RJ's coming here and playing. Well, you're going to make up Thomas Valiant. And you're going to be surprised how powerful Thomas Valiant is. Stretching powers and density control, that's amazing. Plus heightened intelligence.
I was going to say, the funny thing is that if I remember correctly from my own history, the first character I ever created as a comic book character was basically a secondary sort of Dr. Fate character. It was because I always loved the mask, the helmet. Right?
It's a great mask, isn't it? It's a great costume.
Yeah. And it was halfway, I think, sort of between like Dr. Fate and Psycho Pirate, because Psycho Pirate also has the golden mask. And it was I'll probably introduce this if I ever have the chance into my universe at some point in time. But it's basically like a half mask. It was a half gold mask that goes over your face, and I drew some panels of it and things like that. This was a long time ago, and basically the whole point of this character was that you could see half his face and not half of his face, but he could basically make rips in reality, and through the rips in reality, through using the mask, things would come through that would be supernatural. And when he ripped the reality in front of his face, you could see the other side of his face as if it was the mirror to the whole thing. So yeah, he was the Dr. Fate character. The first character I think I ever came up with, like 20-30 years ago at least.
Yeah, I wouldn't allow players to play spellcasters in my game for a long time, but my friend Jimmy, he's like the exception to every rule, because he gets the spirit of the game and he gets into role playing, so it's fun to explore rules with him. Like for a long time I wouldn't let anybody have like time travel or dimensional travel, like all the super complicated powers. No, I had to test it with Jimmy first, because he would stretch the rules but not break the rules. We all know that kid that just, the term is a munchkin, who just wants to manipulate the stats to make the ultimate character. With Dungeons & Dragons, munchkinning is kind of par for the course. You want the best magic sword, you want the best magic armor. It doesn't matter. But when it comes to a superhero, you don't want to be a Spider-Man guy and then carry a laser gun because it gives you better stats. It just doesn't fit. So my friend Jimmy, I always let him test my house rules. But somebody was bringing up Dr. Fate with the half mask. Yeah, nowadays we call that a min-maxer. Yeah, I guess the old term is a munchkin, a min-maxer. I like min-maxer better. It makes more sense. Munchkin, I never understood why. But Dr. Fate, for those of you who remember, he wore that golden helmet. That's just such a great helmet. Why did they make the helmet look weird in the movie? I'll never know, because the helmet is so freaking cool. And he would put it on, and originally I don't. Tony could tell me, but nowadays, like the Lord of Order, Naboo, like downloads spells into his head, and then what happened was Dr. Fate got so powerful in the comics, it kind of got hard to write for the character. So he had a half mask. And when he swapped out, the half mask didn't give him that much power. And he basically became like a Superman ripoff. He could fly, invulnerable, things like that. But he wasn't really a spellcaster when he had the half mask.
If I remember correctly, he was also in control as a human being when he had the half mask on.
Correct.
Whereas Naboo takes over completely when he has the full mask on.
Yes, Chronomancers and Psionics ruined D&D. In the second edition, I don't remember Chronomancers, but Psionics basically turned D&D into a superhero game. Psionics were just mental superpowers, and there was the D&D handbook of Psionics that I used a lot of that. I like the way they did a lot of things in that rule book, and I used that rule book as like the seed for my house rules. Which, by the way, thanks for bringing this up. This reminds me, I had an email chain back and forth with the guy who owns Fantasy Flight Games. I sent him my comic. He sent me a big stack of V&V stuff. Then I had Jeff D on, one of the creators of Villains Vigilantes, and I got his third edition book. You can see it says Villains Vigilantes 3.0, but then because of copyright reasons, they had to call it Mighty Protectors. So I got to check this out, But I said to Scott Bizarre, I would like to do a Villains Vigilante supplement book, but I need writing. I need him to say yes or no in an email. You know what I mean? A verbal okay is because this is somebody else's product. But anyway, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just make like a who's who in Villains Vigilante style of and then show some, and then I could say, hey, my house rules are official now. You don't have to go. But anyway, so what do you want to like? You talk about magic systems like Tolkien. He's got the most famous magic system in the world, which is just unexplained. Gandalf could do magic, and that's it. I never read the Game of Thrones. Does anybody in the chat, did they read Game of Thrones? Like, do they say spells? Are there actual magicians? Like I know they had that guy who was more like a potion master, but I don't know enough about Game of Thrones. Are there actual wizards in it? So, what like Tolkien had a very soft magic system. It wasn't really explained. And you said Dr. Fate had a system, because I really don't know other than it's just a superhero.
It's funny because I was watching, there was a couple of guys that I follow. They do movie, like first viewings and stuff like that. They're watching Lord of the Rings for the first time, and they just finished watching it like 2 days ago. Anyways, they couldn't figure out why Gandalf wasn't using magic in the last battles. And I thought to myself, a little bit about the magic system that he would use, in the fact that, of course, his ring is supposed to inspire, but he's sent down in order to inspire, not to do things for the humans or the other creatures. They're supposed to do it themselves. So it seemed to me that at the very least, if we're going with movies only, I'm not sure how much I would apply it to the books. I'd have to think about it a little more. The only time he uses magic is when he has to rebalance things, because you have demonic forces that are using magic in order to supplant the will of the creatures that live on Middle Earth.
Yeah, I remember when I first read The Hobbit. I think I was in like 6th grade, and then I statted out Gandalf based on all the spells that he could cast, and I concluded that Gandalf was like a 4th level wizard. It's like, Gandalf's not that powerful, the pine cone, throwing the flaming pine cones, and reading magic and then opening doors. Those are all like stuff that puny wizards could do in D&D. but yeah, then I read Lord of the Rings, and I started to think that Gandalf, like, it was more like psionics than magic. And then I just realized that Tolkien had his own thing, that he wasn't a wizard in D&D terms at all. Gandalf was just like he was like an angel with like spiritual divine power. And like you said, he was given a command to lead and inspire. And if you notice, Gandalf did the most impressive things when nobody was looking. You know, he told everybody to leave, and then he fought the Balrog for 3 days, flying up and down, shooting mountains at each other and crashing the mountains. And then on Weathertop, he was waiting on Weathertop, and he got attacked by all the ring wraiths, and he fought all 9 of them, and there was lightning shooting out of the sky and everything. If you remember, Aragorn was watching, but people didn't see what Gandalf did. And then off camera, he battled the necromancer, Sauron.
Yeah, the Battle of Barad-dûr isn't even covered except in the appendix.
Right. Like so again, the only time Gandalf, trying to think, he did anything, he did a few impressive things, but like, that was his order, was to inspire and lead. He not to do, because he probably could have challenged Sauron, but Sauron had an advantage physically or magically, because Sauron, for those of you who don't know, he was the lieutenant of Morgoth, and Morgoth was the mightiest of the Valar, and Morgoth got defeated. Now, Sauron didn't come up with the idea of the ring out of nowhere. He learned it from Morgoth. Morgoth would spend all of his energy into Arda, into the earth itself. And Tolkien said that Arda was Mordor's ring, not a ring like you put on your finger, but it was the receptacle of all of his power. And when Morgoth got thrown beyond the doors of night into the void, into space, all of Morgoth's power is still latent in the earth, and Sauron is tapping into that. So he's probably more powerful. I mean, because he fought Saruman, who is a Maya, Sauron's a Maya, Gandalf is a Maya, and then Galadriel is like the mightiest of the elves, and Elrond isn't weak either. You know what I mean? And he fought them to a standstill and fled. I would consider that a victory, So Sauron was able to tap into Morgoth's magic, and then he had his ring, which preserved his power. Yeah. He does the most impressive stuff when nobody watches. Cool story, bro. Yeah, you should have seen me. I had that guy crying. Like, remember when we were in 6th grade, we were talking about fights? Yeah, I beat him up. He's going to deny it. Totally beat him up. He was crying. I've been ignoring the chat. I get so into these talks that I forget that there's people listening sometimes. Yeah, I didn't see it. Should I watch the Black Adam film? I love Black Adam and Captain Marvel, but I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. The Golden Age Dr. Fate was just a super scientist, basically. That's interesting. I got to read Golden Age Dr. Fate. There was no Naboo controlling him. Naboo was an Egyptian alien that taught him the science magic. That is really interesting. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The Golden Age characters in the modern age are very different. Yeah, but AD&D, you get no saving throws against psionics. I don't recall that, but you probably remember better than me. Anybody remembers better than me. My memory is garbage. So a first level character could kill a 20th level. 3rd edition gave you saving throws. In Game of Thrones, boobies are magic. Yeah, lots of boobies. So I guess there's a lot of magic. They have blood magic. Yeah, I forgot that. Yeah, the wildlings have that raven magic and stuff. I forgot. And I like how 3rd edition did a magic system. Arcane was drawn from the world, divine from the gods, and psychic from... Okay. Kind of... I never read 3rd edition, but in my comic book, there's mind, body, and spirit. Those are the 3 spheres. And the more I talk, the more I'll give away story plots. They have weird word... Yes, the druid magic. RJ, didn't you say you would play a druid if you were to play Dungeons & Dragons?
No, play Ranger.
Okay.
That's the thing. So... The thing is that I'm used to playing D&D with the games, so Icewind Dale and Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and Icewind Dale 1 and 2, and the earlier ones than that too. I'd always play a Ranger. Sometimes, like, I got to play a Paladin, but usually I play a Ranger. But Ranger has mystical abilities. They're just small ones. You got turn undead, um, and you were able to choose favorite enemy, which I always chose as undead, and laying on of hands. So you got some magic, but not enough to be, overpowered. So that's the way I usually look at magic when I try to put it into a system, because I think those games mostly use third edition rules.
Yeah, for what Gandalf cast second level a bit as high as Kessie multi-class. Yeah, I always Dungeons Dragons. If you ever somehow have the misfortune of having me as your dungeon master, and we play a fantasy game, you're gonna realize that I get rid of all the classes. You just play what you want, and that kind of bothered a couple of my friends. But like, you want to be a wizard? Okay, you have training points. You put those points in something that would help you being a wizard. So if you want to be a wizard, but you put all your points into strength and endurance, and sword proficiencies, you're a pretty lousy wizard. Now, if you want to be a thief isn't a classic. A thief is an action. So if you use magic to steal from people, you're a thief. Like a burglar would be like a physical thief, like you know what I mean? So I did away with classes. So to get back to this, it always bothered me that the most famous wizards used swords, like Gandalf. Gandalf used swords. So why couldn't? So if you're playing with me and you want to have a sword as a wizard, be my guest. But you only got so many points. So you need a lot of points in arcane kind of studies to be a wizard. So you'll be a middling swords person, unless you get lucky, then maybe you can have like a pretty decent sword skills and back it up with low magic, but why not? That's to me the fun, is you cater your character to the way you want. As long as you're not a freaking bard. I hate bards. Bards should you play a lute. We're going after a gelatinous cube. And then like the new days, the bards, all they want to do is like sleep with monsters. It's like, dude, don't play with me if that's what you want to do. Orcs are coming. We kill the orcs like good, normal, healthy people.
There was a class, so I think it was for Ultima 4, the game, the worst, like the most useless class ever I have seen. You could play a shepherd in that, and shepherds could do nothing. They just had humility, and that was it.
Yeah. Play. There's too many classes in modern Dungeons & Dragons. There's just too many classes, and a lot of them are distinctions without differentiation. Am I saying that expression? So let me correct that. Gandalf was more boosting other people's abilities, so make him 4th to 16th level wizard. Yeah, Gandalf. He was basically a counter to Sauron. So like, he could only he used his magic a lot in a lot of subtle ways, but he only directly got involved in a few times when there was no other people around, because he wanted humanity to rise up. It was supposed to be the age of men. That's why, in the movie they had the elves go to Helm's Deep, but in the books the elves weren't there. That was, that's why there was the last alliance of elves and men 2,000 years ago. In the movies there is no alliance between elves and men. The only elves that helped was Elrond's sons that were left out of the movie, and Legolas, and Galadriel, yeah, as support. Legolas is the only elf that really got directly involved. So, that was why it was supposed to be humans. This is the time for humans, and Gandalf was there to support the humans. What is the subject? RJ wanted to talk about magic, so today we're talking about magic systems and stuff.
Here's a good question for you, John. You might know a lot more about this than I do. So, is there any explanation whatsoever why the One Ring makes you invisible? Because it is a magic ring. Gandalf calls it a magic ring, but why in the world does it make you invisible? Why is it that power?
There's two answers. The first answer is because that's what Tolkien made up, just an invisible ring.
But what was his retcon for that?
Well, it was just a magic invisibility ring when he wrote The Hobbit.
Right.
It wasn't until he actually, and if you get a first printing of The Hobbit, it's slightly different. and then there's an actual in-house rule. There's a canon rule of that too. That Bilbo was Bilbo. Okay, well, this could get super dirty, but that's what it was. But then when he started to write Lord of the Rings, he wanted to have a hook, and because of the ring of the Nibelung, and then Beowulf, and there was all these magic rings and the ring of Gyges. So he made the ring the focal point as the bridge. So that's the original reason, was it was just a invisibility ring. But then later on, the reason is it pulls you into the spirit world. Now, the Valar and Maya are mostly spirit beings. They exist mostly in the spirit world, Gandalf. And then Gandalf chooses a form to house his spirit. The Sauron is one of them, and then they kind of make like this artificial body to house themselves, and they literally could look like anything. Gandalf could shape change, but he was actually told to look like an old man, because nobody's going to listen to a short little hobbit. You know what I mean? Kind of like, oh, an old wise looking guy, so we'll listen to you. But when he put on the ring, he was gifted the power of Sauron, and could, was pulled into the spirit world. So that's why he became visible to anything in the spirit world, being the Nazgul, Sauron, Gandalf. That's why when he put on the ring, Gandalf would be like, "Take it off!" He became a beacon. They could see exactly where he was. But there's still things that bother me. Like, how did that Nazgul get that close to the ring? When he was looking over the tree, and didn't find it. I don't know, because it's a cool thing. Cool. I never played a psionic character whose class was just psionics. Oh, a super chat. I don't know if this is going to you, RJ, or going to me, but thank you. Thank you to. It looks like it's going to RJ.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much.
Thank you to whoever, whether it's me or RJ. Thank you. Thank you. Neither one of us really get a lot of super chats, so we appreciate it. I'm like the worst YouTuber in the world. I'm just like, please don't super chat me. But every dollar goes to paying for StreamYard, so thank you. I'm sure RJ does the same.
Yeah.
StreamYard's getting just more and more expensive. Arcanist Rogue here with levels and Blade Singer Prestige. You see, that just seems like super specific, Like, I don't know. I just don't know. RJ, how much magic do you think for Starmer to retain his role as Prime Minister? I hope he's gone by the end of this sentence.
I think there's some black magic going on there.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I agree. Oh, this is you. Okay, this is you. Should say first edition Sonics was a bit overpowered at the first levels, but not about by level 6 and up. Magic item then could easily. Okay, yeah. My problem with the original magic system, the psionic system in second edition D&D, was it was supposed to be lightning fast, the speed of thought. So all the psionic battles were first, and then so everybody else without psionics just sat there waiting. You got to think about that kind of stuff when you come up with the system. Yeah, the original D&D, yes, elf was a class, a race, and a class. Same with dwarf. Yep, absolutely. That's somebody's old school. That's why third is a better wizard, but could use a sword, but he could waste one of his feats to get that instead of a feat that would make his right. That's the way I believe. You want to use a sword, fine, use a sword, but either you're just a basic sword guy, or you're spending points on the sword that could be used to make you a better magician. That's what makes it fun. Is you get to tell in my game, you get to pick and choose and tailor make your character. D&D 2 is always like, congratulations, you leveled up. Here's your package. Here's your package, just like everybody else. The only difference is the magic items that the Dungeon Masters supplied.
So was it only first and second edition where wizards could not use any bladed weapons whatsoever, and clerics could only use cudgels?
Yeah, well, clerics could use bladed weapons, and wizards could only use a staff or a dagger. The staff made sense, dagger made sense, but why couldn't a wizard use anything else? And the rule was, they said, because all the metal messed with their spell. And a wizard couldn't use armor. A cleric could use any armor, and only like blunted weapons. But I quickly house ruled that if you were the the cleric of the assassin god, of course you could use knives. You know what I mean? So then we kind of house ruled it to like you could use if you worship Apollo, your cleric is not only encouraged to, bow and arrows, but they get bonuses for bow and arrows. And then, as far as I know, third edition D&D kind of embraced that also. But the thing is that clerics had a pretty good 2-hit chart, so they limited their weapons. Otherwise, they think that it was a balancing issue.
Because of the bless.
Right, because if a cleric could have all the same weapons as a fighter, everybody would be a cleric because you got like 10% less fighting ability and then all that magic. Old school bards were totally different. Yes, old school bards were weird, difficult, and badass. New school bards are just like perverts. I don't like new school bards. Class. I just insulted Classy. Classy to me. I don't mean to hurt anybody's feelings. I have opinions, and my opinions kind of piss people off a lot. Bards should be earned, not given. Don't mess with the bear. I'm loving these comments, guys. What advice would you give to someone with an art block? Oh, RJ, you want to handle that? Well,
yeah, go look at some really good old covers. Go to Cover Browser and go look. You'll get inspired. That's what I'm saying. I get inspired from old Phantom Stranger and Doctor Strange covers just themselves. I was like, I don't want to read this book. I want to build my own story off of this cover and then go read the book. So for me, looking at the old art, and it's so detailed there because especially the covers, they're illustrations. They're not part of the sequential art. And so you can make up your own story based on that. So it is very inspirational.
I can't give you any help with an art block. I'm not an artist. Matter of fact, when I'm done talking with the RJ, I got to make some sketches for a character for a new artist that I'm working with. And I warned her. I said, be prepared to laugh. And, she was very professional and says, no, I would never laugh. When I said sketches to Renzo, he laughs. we have a relationship. And then writer's block, when people say, what do you do about writer's block? And as arrogant as this sounds, I don't get writer's block. My problem is there's just not enough hours in the day to do my job, spend time with my wife, do normal stuff, go, laundry, and then write. I want to write all the time. It's just that sometimes I need to sleep, sometimes I need to eat, and this damn thing called work gets in the way. So I don't know. I wish I could draw. Maybe when I retire, I'll actually start trying to learn how to draw.
For writer's block, well, maybe it would work the same for artist block. I don't know. For writer's block, since I love the limitations of comics, what I do is I write down the page with everything I do know. So the basic, it will be page this, and then panel 1, panel 2, panel 3, and I just put in the slots. And then if I have anything to put in any of those panels, I put a little bit in. And then I fill in a little bit. And then every once in a while, I'll say, okay, I need X, Y, and Z, or a picture to go here. I'll go find that for Renzo. And you find inspiration in the connection, I find.
Yeah. When I first started, I was like, okay, I wouldn't say I got writer's block, but I would get like intimidated. Now I'm just going to write for 10 minutes. Knowing full well, once you start doing it, you're going to write for an hour. You know what I mean? But I'm just going to draw for 10 minutes. Just tell yourself to draw for 10. Draw anything. Draw Peanuts characters. Just get yourself, and then get that creative juice going. Well, the ring makes you visible to the big evil. Exactly. I think it makes you go to you go to the spirit world. You go to the spirit world. There's two realms. There's the spirit realm and the material realm. That would make sense. Since everyone turns visible and Saruman the ring doesn't turn invisible. It takes you to the ethereal plane. Well, it does take you to, because you can't walk through walls or anything like that. You just, you become in tune to the spirit world. That would have made more sense if you could walk through walls. But originally, like I said, Tolkien couldn't retcon too much. Like I said, he literally changed the riddles in the dark in the first edition, Lord of the Rings, Hobbit, and then everything that we read, and in the original book, he found the ring, and then I forget what it was. No, in the original book, the first edition, he had the riddle contest with Smeagol, and then Smeagol handed him the ring to honor this, because oaths and contests are a big deal. They're binding. And then that's what he told Gandalf. And then later on in World, Gandalf figured out where the ring was, so he went back and re-edited the book to the truth, where he found the ring, because he realized if this was the one ring, Smeagol never would have been able to give it up. So there's actual a reason why he went and edited and retconned his own book in-house, because he was realizing he was lying to Gandalf. Hey, Dave Brink is here. How you doing, Dave? I just saw that your comics are printed and they'll be getting sent out soon. Can't wait. Stay in the material plane. He's a spirit in the material world. Yes, he's still weak from being sent out and writing in the daylight. Oh, Arkham's here. How you doing, Arkham? Arkham's one of my artists. Great Magic System is John Zatara. Oh, yeah. Okay. I couldn't read it, but yeah, that's Zatanna's father. Bro just says it backwards and it happens. Losers learning spells and studying stuff. Meanwhile, yeah, super powerful. Speaking of magic systems, you just made me think of something. Let me know. I'm sure Tony Grigo knows this, but I follow an account, Sandy Peterson on Twitter. I encourage anybody. He's one of my favorite Twitter guys. He's a old school D&D player. He created the game Call of Cthulhu. He makes board games. He created the game Doom, the video game, and just an interesting guy. And he recommended this book, The Dying Earth by Jack Vance, Tales of the Dying Earth. This is like 3 novels in one. And he says that Gary Gygax lifted the magic system from this series into D&D. So I was like, got to get this book then. You know, it's dangerous. Every time I listen to Sandy Peterson or Chuck Dixon, it costs me like $20. You know, they're always recommended books to me.
That's funny. I want to, after you read it, tell me what the basic plot of it is. Because one of the magic systems, because I have various magic systems that I use for my books, but one of the magic systems that I use, it's from an anime that I really loved. And when it was basically, kind of like the dying earth. The earth was dying and they had to separate chunks of it into spheres, almost like, like Logan's Run spheres, and they were jettisoned off into space. And the connecting systems that brought the earth back together were basically imbuing people's words with power, and so they would speak words of power if they were able to tap into the system and therefore create what everybody else would see as magic, because the earths that were in these spheres had degraded back to a medieval kind of societies.
This concept, I hated first edition. It means if you played at Elfadorf, your maximum level was 12th, while humans can go. I always hate. I did away with that. I also did away with all race class restrictions. So like dwarves could be wizards, and it always, my proof has always been like, you read any Norse mythology or Greek mythology, the dwarves were the one that made all the magical weapons. How did they make magical weapons if they couldn't cast spells? So I always got rid of that. And quite frankly, you characters don't live that long in my games. Very few retire at an old age. Roll Aids did a lot of supplements. They had a Sonic one in 1991. You could play as a Sonic class. I don't know anything about that. I got to look that up. John, RJ, what do you think is the best magic system for a fantasy world? What do you think, RJ?
Well, the one I just described is probably the one I love the most. The one basically imbuing words of power. That's the one I love the most, and I gave it to one of the characters that's going to be front and center for the next couple of books anyways. But when I'm very much for Crom the Destroyer, going back to the Conan way, Robert E. Howard and the other people who wrote Conan, because there's various magic systems within the Conan world. So I like to use that with the Crom the Destroyer. I got various different systems. One is the demonic system where they're channeling demonic energy. Another one is basically a science that they haven't discovered yet. So you got these different things because there's a lot of that in Conan as well.
Sound Engraver says, I write driving to work. What do you dictate it into your phone? My friend suggested that, but I like my driving to and from work is daydreaming time. And I like to actually write here at the computer. But, I get tempted to start dictating into Grok or whatever. My favorite magic system, I do like Tolkien's magic system. It took me a long time, and I think I understand it. I'm not going to say I totally understand it. Somebody's going to explain to me why I'm wrong. But I just like that Tolkien's world is inherently magical. And the more powerful the beings, they just learn how to, not manipulate the magic, but, work with it. I don't even think they would call it magic. And every being in Tolkien's world, whether you realize it or not, manipulates magic in a certain way. I remember not an argument, a fun argument with a coworker. I was like, Aragorn was telepathic. Everybody in Middle Earth they have a word for it. Is telepathic to a certain extent.
I always thought that Aragorn had farsight.
Yeah, that's his telepathy. Galadriel even says Sauron is constantly trying to probe her mind, and she is strong enough to repel Sauron, and she's constantly reading Sauron's mind, where she knows everything that Sauron knows that has to do with elves. So she could, so she knows what Sauron's plans are for the elves and things like that. But Aragorn has healing magic, and one of the subtle spells was when Gandalf was leaving the prancing pony, he blessed Barleyman Butterbur, and for 7 years he had the best ale and barley and food, for the next 7 years, which is and it saved him because when Saruman took over the Shire and came in, the food was so good there he didn't mess with the prancing pony. I'm a woman and I don't dig chicks. Laziel will be my friend. Maybe I'll try more deep role playing for another playthrough. But I looked at the guy. There's a Vampire the Wizard. Yeah, did anybody ever play as a vampire or anything like that, or play the game Vampire? Meaning I run the scenes in my head and act them out. Okay, I do the same thing. Yeah, I don't write. Writing to me is actually, but I daydream and come up with ideas, and then I'll turn on Grok. Define this word for me, and then Grok will define a word because I could do it hands free. So that's what I do while I'm in there, and I like that time. To the point when I'm back on the day shift, the regular shift, I'm going to take the train, and I feel like I'm going to lose that daydreaming time because when I get on the train, I instantly fall asleep. I get out of mine. I start to how to style. That's not my. I reset my brain. Okay, while driving. Yeah, I know. I like daydreaming while driving. Okay, you guys are talking to yourself. Isn't Jack Vance a total lip? I have no idea. I never heard of the guy until Sandy Peterson said that this book was magical. So I don't want to know anything about him. I'm tired of learning about people. It's never good. When was the last time you learned about an actor or an artist or anything, and it turned out to be, that raised my opinion of that person? It never happens. That's why I don't want to see RJ. The way he looks can only ruin my opinion of him. Gygax got magic from everywhere, I think. In Zero Addiction, he was literally just calling his black Martian ripoffs Black Martians. I didn't know that. RJ and John, Ryan Banks says, in Christianity, miracles are from God and magic. Sorcery, spellcasting, conjuring, etc. are from Satan. What is the source of magic in your lore? That is really good. My wife and I were talking about the Witch of Endor the other day from the Bible. And then that led to discussions of the Malice. My wife and I have a nice conversation, I have to admit. Now that she's doing these Bible studies, she's really interested in all this Old Testament stuff. But RJ, do you want to answer this before I pontificate for 2.5 hours?
Well, I don't want to give away too much because it's actually part of the story, but I think it would be there's different systems because it's sacred versus the divine. I mean, sorry, the divine or the demonic versus the sacred.
Right. In my superhero world, which is made up, there's divine magic, which would be from the god, I guess, infernal magic, which would be from Satan. And then there's just magic, which is basically learning how to manipulate the universe. I'm being cagey on purpose, but and there's different ways to use magic. There would be like a typical spell casting, like you'd see, you learn a formula and stuff. There'd be blood magic, soul magic, just different ways to manipulate the universe in systems that we call magic. And in my world, magic is neither good nor evil, just like science is good or evil. Science is one way of manipulating the laws of nature. Magic is a way of manipulating, laws of nature. But each universe, like I said, that the universe, think of it as a spectrum. This over here is pure chaos, and the laws of physics don't work. There can only be laws of chaos, so everything would break down. So people can't even exist there. And then over here is all law, where there's no randomness, and there's no magic, and everything is purely, predictable. And humans can't exist there either, because you can't break down molecules into oxygen, into energy, and things like that. So we have to exist somewhere in the middle. So there's this Goldilocks section, but a couple of spaces over here, there's no magic whatsoever because you're too close to order. A couple of places over here, the laws of physics are too unpredictable. It's not that science doesn't work. It's just that they're too unpredictable in science, so they turn to magic, which I actually included some beings from the magical universe in the script I just wrote yesterday. And
let me throw you off into another sidetrack, John, off of what you said there. So I always thought of the Force as a magic system. When we only had the first 3 movies, what did you think the Force was? Was it magic, and how did you thought it worked?
It's funny because, like I said, in my body, mind, soul, the body would be superpowers. We get this energy that pervades our body, and we could do superpower. Mind would be psionics and mental abilities, and soul would be we're tapping into the universe itself for magic. So again, that was too much information, but I tend to talk a lot. So those are 3 different systems of where you could get powers. And
I always thought the system I came up with in my head before the prequels came out about the Force was basically, I think I said this before, humans learned basically through implants to communicate with machines, and then after they learned to manipulate their mental systems in order to connect directly to machines, then they learned how to connect directly both to other human beings and then to nature through the same expanding of their minds through this one thing. That's what I always thought how the Force would develop in like humanity in the Star Wars universe.
Okay. I realized I didn't answer your question. Like the Force to me would be psionics. It's mental abilities through, and that's why the Jedi have to train and have discipline and everything like that. So, maybe there's sorcery in the. I don't know, because I don't care about Star Wars anymore, because there's only 2.5 good Star Wars movies. First movie was great. Empire Strikes Back was great, and up until they leave Jabba's palace in Return of the Jedi was great. After that, that's it. There's no more Star Wars. It doesn't exist. It was a limited premise. Once the war is over, there's no Star Wars. I never heard of this book, 3 Hearts and 3 Lions, and inspired. I always thought Gary Gygax took the Law and Chaos from Michael Moorcock's Elric, but if there's a book before that, then yeah, I'd like to check it out. Definitely like to check it out. How do you gents apply magic in your superhero universe? I greatly value powers with clear themes and specifications, so I avoid magic in the genuine. Do you have spellcasters in your world? I forget, RJ.
Oh yeah, because in the Crown the Destroyer, there's even like a magician's battle, like in the middle of the 2nd chapter, which is basically the second book. Yeah, there's a giant, like a giant magic battle going on while the main characters are just like little ants going around the foot of this magic battle going on. But yeah, how do I? There's the limitations again. Is the fact that we're going back way in history for Crown the Destroyer, so it's one which is one of the spellcasters is channeling the demonic, where the other one is basically a scientist that has discovered a whole bunch of scientific ways to create things, um, you know, thousands and thousands of years before science even existed. So that looks like magic to everyone else in that world. So yeah, that's the way I deal with it that way. I don't really have it pinned down within the current day books that I use. You only brush against it there.
Yeah. What exactly is the question? How do I play? So how do I play? So I again, I have a magic using character that you see a cameo of him in the Mary Sue story in Heroic Tales 2, and he's in the other comic that'll come out in Punchline, but I didn't really focus on him. I purposely have been avoiding making a focus on him, but I have a story that's going to debut him, and I don't want to tell much about it other than Dave knows me. We've talked behind the scenes. I literally write character sheets for all my characters. So my magician character, I have all of his spells written down. So he's not just going to pull something out of his butt to save the day. So he has a vast but limited repertoire of magic abilities that you guys will, if Lord B, if you guys support me for long enough, you'll start to see, oh, he's using this spell again. He's using this spell again. And to be consistent, he's going to explain his magic system. I've been avoiding describing exactly how the magic system is going to work in Heroic Tales because it's the topic of a future comic. But by the end of that issue, you'll understand everything, about how it works. It's going to be like one of the most anal retentive hard magic systems. So, but you could get a jump on me and ask me, and I'll send you my house rules for my role playing games. But I think the thing about magic is you have to be consistent, and it has to make sense, and your character has to struggle. So if your magician is just, it's one of the reasons why I don't like Zatanna. She just says everything backwards and defeats anything. It's too powerful. So I Doctor Strange struggled, like, Dr. Fate was a little bit more powerful, but like my magicians, my metaphysician, he's a regular guy who can cast spells. So he's not particularly faster. So you could get the draw on him. If he's walking down the street and he's not really putting up his magic spells, because they all have costs. He needs material components. He needs to focus. He needs to concentrate. So a lot of the times, he's in the meta league. The other guys will jump in front and give him time to ascertain what he needs to do and stuff like this. But if you got super speed, man, you're taking out the metaphysician, because he's got to, prestidigitate and everything like that. But I'm being cagey on purpose because I really don't want to give you a specific answer because it'll be in a story. But yes, be consistent. Don't write down what they could do. So like when you write yourself in the corner, he just wiggles and solves the problem. That's not fun. That's not fun.
So there was an idea. I think I threw this out a while ago, but there was an idea for a novel that I always thought I might write, but I doubt I'll ever get to it. It's basically it's the whole story revolves around magic. So it's a combination of the show, The River, and the movie Cabin in the Woods. So basically, in The River, what they're doing is they think that the world is going to die because magic is leaving the entire world, and so they're going down the Amazon River trying to re-energize magic in some way. I think they canceled that show before it ever got anywhere. But my thought would be a great story would be you have these people and they see magic dying in the world, and they do this. They try to rejuvenate magic in some way because they think it's going to save the world, and that would be like the end of the first book, where they would actually get to rejuvenate magic, and it would actually cause a magic apocalypse where the gods and all these creatures would be reinvigorated and just decimate humankind because they'd retake over the earth.
Cool. Magic. Dave Brink, Genuine Comics. First off, everybody check out Perfect 10. Everybody check out Safeguard. Go to genuinecomics.com and buy his back issues. They're really good. He's doing some of the best superhero comics. I think he's doing the best superhero comics, but I don't want to hurt RJ's feelings. Dave Brink is so good. And he lives in the same country where that beautiful Jutta, that speed skater in the Olympics that's just taken over the internet. Oh my God. If that's what the women look like over there, no wonder the girls in your comic book look the way they do, Dave Brink. But I can understand why people would be cagey about having magicians in their comics. But I like them. It's my comic book is an homage to all superhero comics, and there always were magician superheroes. So it would be like a weird omission not to have them, but I'd like to think I got a good handle on it. But you guys be the judge when I finally get around to telling the story of the metaphysician. I can't wait for you guys to see that story. It's good. RJ, I think you're really gonna like it because it's gonna be a philosophical battle about heresies in the Christian faith. That is true. I guess they made Mad Max. They made Max level 12 back then because he either died or were lucky to get to 12. Yeah, I don't know. I just did away with the level limits. When you could be a 6,000-year-old elf, but you're stuck at 12th level, what good is immortality then? Elves should be more powerful than humans. Yeah, it could be many sorts. Yeah, nothing but, well, yeah, with I don't want to get into a theological discussion right now. Some have dwarves resistant magic, what makes them handle things. Yeah, okay, I'll buy that. Once you reach 10th level, you max out on damage for casting the fireball. I always like Drow. I don't know what tieflings are. I heard they're like part demon or something like that. And everybody misinterprets the half elves. In Tolkien, a half elf is you get to decide where you go when you die. You know, like Elrond is half elven because 25 generations in the past, his father his descendant was Arendelle, and Arendelle had two sons. I forget, Elrond and Elros, and Elrond chose to be elven, and Elros chose to be human. Physically, they didn't change. You know, so Elrond maybe has human ears because Elrond's mother was an elf, but Elrond's father was a human. Who knows? What changed was their Fea, their soul, their spirit. So Elrond chose, and his soul developed into an elven spirit, an elven soul, and because of that, he didn't age, he didn't die, and when he dies, he goes to Valinor, and then his brother Elros became the first king of Numenor. He became a human. His soul stayed a human, meaning he's part of the changing world, as they called it. And when he died, Tolkien said only God knew where you go when they die. But it was supposed to be a pleasant thing. Like the Numenorians in the First Age, humans didn't fear death. They thought it was the gift of Iluvatar. And it wasn't until Morgoth started whispering in their ears and making them fear death. I was just listening in my car about Galadriel, how she was proud and vain, and she refused to go to Valinor because she left Valinor as a young girl to come to Middle Earth because she wanted to rule. She was a very vain and arrogant elf, and then she got everything she's ever wanted, and she didn't want to lose it. She's now the Lady of Lorien, and she wants to preserve her land, you know. And she made it look like Valinor from her childhood and everything. She had these big, beautiful trees. And then she desired the One Ring because with the One Ring, she could preserve Lorien. And then it was offered to her. And she realized, oh my, I'm going to become just, and then that's when she says, I'm going to diminish, meaning because she was in the top 3 most powerful people on Middle Earth. And when she rejected the ring, she said, I'm going to go and diminish into the West. Not meaning get small, not lose her power. Meaning when she goes to Valinor, she's one of the least ranked elves. She's a newbie. You know what I mean? She's new kid on the block. That's what she means by diminish. Like on Earth, she's the top dog. But when she goes to Valinor, there's been people who've been living among the gods for tens of thousands of years. She's, oh, look, Galadriel's here. Get the shine box, Galadriel. You know, that's what she means. And I thought that was very moving. She learned humility and humbleness. I could talk about Tolkien all night long. Vampire the oh yeah, that far back in the comments. Vampire the Masquerade, yeah, Be My Friends used to play it. And then there was what, Rage the Ascension, the werewolf game. I found the Roll 8 Sonic. I don't know anything about this. If anybody wants to send me a message, friends of mine told me playing D&D Second Edition in the Ruined City. I think it was called Mithril. I don't know anything. There's so much product. I wish I knew. Agreed. I liked a few songs on YouTube until I looked up the artist. Wow, we are so far behind. I'm sorry, RJ. I have an image of RJ in my head based on his voice. Yeah, me too. Me too. Sounded great, but we should compare notes. You know, watch. That's why I put RJ as a Bigfoot in my comic book sound engraver. RJ and me. You like that, all right, RJ? My wife was like, "What?"
Yeah.
He gets mad. So it's too late now. I'm hitting print.
No. I laughed my head up.
You liked it? Good.
Oh yeah.
I'm busting my chops to come up with a theme for the next issue. John, do you like the way Michael Moorcock handled magic? Yes, I did. It was very close to Dungeons and Dragons, but it also had a hint of Tolkien's magic. Like, you know, some beings just manipulated the world, and then some beings had to study and learn magic. Okay, you guys are talking amongst yourselves. Infernal, I guess John favors the devil faction of the Blood War. Not me. The bad guys got to be bad. You know what I mean? You got to include stuff for the bad guys to do, because then there's nothing for your heroes to do. Like, a hero is only as cool as his villains. You know, in the first season of Batman, the 66 show, there was no supervillains. Nobody remembers that season. Everybody remembers the second season with all the cool supervillains. Buckaroo, I have that supplement. Cool. Dragon and Demons were the other ones. The Witch of Endor is an interesting story because she freaks out when Samuel appears, meaning she was faking it. No, I don't mean to contradict you, but one of the things the Witch of Samuel said that necromancy was punishable by death in Israel. So when Samuel showed up and commanded her to use her powers, she said, no, it's against your laws, and I'm a law-abiding citizen, which is really freaky. She offered him food. She did this, and he basically threatened her, and she did it against her own will. She was trying to be good, and then when it worked, she freaked out even more, which makes me think that maybe she was a con man or something. I don't know, but it's a really interesting character, you know. And then who was it? Samuel, and then Saul gave her bad advice, and he went out and died. It's a really freaky story, but check it out. She was like, no, I don't want to do it. It's against the law. It's against your law. I don't want to break your law. Like, maybe she thought it was a setup, or maybe she was a fraud and she was using that law to cover it up, make it seem like she was good. I don't know, but it's an interesting story. Well, the manifestation of Sam was far more than she ever had. I think the Force would be Sonic's. Yeah. I always thought that the Star Wars, to me, the magic in Star Wars was psionics. Psionics to me seemed more sci-fi than magic. You know, I'm trying to go through all. Oh my God, there's so many good comments. But with the Force lightning being through some wizards, yeah, and now they can heal, and you know, it might as well be full on magic now. Michael Moorcock was a total libtard. He tried to get Ryder kicked out of the publishers because the guy's books weren't feminist enough. He also pooped on Tolkien. I don't know. Please don't tell me that. I love those Elric and Melnibone books. The first 6 were good. After that, that is Lord of the Rings. The D&D City was Myth Draenor. I wish I had the chance. Yeah,
I think Myth Draenor was part of the Drow mythology, but I could be wrong.
I wish. Oh man, wouldn't that be fun to just be 12 years old playing D&D with your buddies, drinking Mountain Dew, eating Funyuns? You know, back then, now I don't know how it happened. It's cool to be into comic books, man. I wish I was 15 years old now. You know, 15 years old now. It's cool to play Dungeons Dragons comic books and chicks like that. Back then, it was like we played Dungeons Dragons because chicks didn't like us. You know, you didn't like the Ewok, John? I saw a pink Valentine of Ewok figure in the hobby shop last week. Yeah, I thought Return of the Jedi is when George Lucas started pandering to children. Look at how scary. I remember going to see The Empire Strikes Back, and there was a kid with their family, and when the monster ripped off, it hit Luke Skywalker, that kid got up and screamed and ran down the aisle and left the movie theater, and the parents left them. I was like, all right, there you go, George Lucas. You're terrifying children. This is awesome. I remember being scared when the arm got cut off in the first bar. I was in third grade. Obi-Wan Kenobi. Vroom, vroom. I was like, there was a real sense of danger. And then Han Solo, his introduction was pretty scary. There's that freaking Satan guy in the bar. Like, where am I? And a guy tries to kill Luke, and Han is just shooting and killing people. And then the third movie, they're all singing hub 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 hub. Dancing around with Ewoks.
I don't know if I remember this correctly. This is just dredging it up from the corner of my mind, but I think we went to the theater and Return of the Jedi was playing at the same time as Search for Spock, and I said, I'm going to watch Search for Spock. I'm not going to go watch Return of the Jedi.
Yeah, I took an early girlfriend on an early date to search Spock. It almost destroyed the relationship. Girls do not like Star Trek, at least back in the early 80s. And my silly little store magic system was built on old dramatic stone ruin thing. That's cool. There's
a really interesting magic system in Ultima Underworld, which is completely based on runes. So you have to collect runes and then put them in a certain order in your hand, and then say words of power. And it's the only place that this magic works is within the mountain that you're trapped, because it's a first person shooter, but in a fantasy version. Is one of the earliest versions of first person like that. So it's an interesting system as compared to the rest of the world of Ultima.
Yeah, yes, I got the page, but I got it now while I'm live, so I don't get a chance to check it out yet. Arkham's just sent me a page. There's some old OP spells. What's that? Old powerful spells or old school spells? The box set makes
Overpowered.
Overpowered. Okay. John, innate spells are learned what? To what? Could you? I'm so far behind that I don't know what this is in reference to. The Force is its own discrete energy form because Jedi manipulate the forces with mind over matter, then sound. Okay, I'll buy that. Myth trying to fill because of wild magic. Yeah. Is this a setting in D&D? Zatanna learned from her father to hate on her magic, to hate on learning the family craft, to hate on tradition and ancestry. She's undone by a gag in her mouth. Yeah, I love the character, but like, I just feel she's too powerful. Like, it doesn't cost anything. You know what I mean? Then, to me, like, Full Metal Alchemist has a great magic system.
Yeah.
Something. Literally, it costs an arm and a leg to cast his spell. Do you want sport? Okay, you're talking amongst themselves. From Est, I've been told D&D second edition is a little too expensive. Is it expensive? I guess they could select this out, but that's all I have. I'm looking over here because I got a big pile of D&D second edition books. The D&D second edition D&D's Demigods is perhaps my favorite book of all time. I like the different schools of magic in D&D can make. Yeah, I have that too. The 7 schools of like I said, my magic system is D&D magic system, but then fine tuned to my own liking. Yeah, John, tieflings are either half devils or half demons. Yes. Yeah, I never played with them. What were they, 3rd edition? I imagine a magical system made of threads that weave reality. Wizards pull them to cast spells, but if they wow, that is really cool. That is cool. That's very poetic. Very visual. Spoiler away. Tell me something fascinating about Myth Draenor. I like people in the chat are having a good time. The elves destroy themselves, civil war over allowing non-elves. You see what happens with diversity always causes problems. You see? Elven arrogance. I like elves. Yeah. Gladriel being a big fish. Yeah, she's a big fish in a small pond, and then she's a big fish and she goes into the ocean. She's just another fish. Let's draw RJ. Yeah, everybody. That'd be funny. Everybody submit your drawings of what you think RJ looks like, and then RJ will pick the winner. I can't judge it. I can't judge what RJ really looks like. Oh, cool. Everybody's talking about this D&D lore. The way I always pictured RJ is a young, rugged Wilfred Brimley. Are they close?
That's actually not too far away.
Oh, okay.
A little taller than Wilford Brimley, though.
And by the way, if anybody has a picture of RJ, don't send it to me. I don't want to know. I don't. One day, like I said, when I get the $100,000 stretch goal at RJ, what I want to do is I want to go to the airport with like a sign that says like RJ from the fourth age, and then just stand there and then get tapped on the shoulder, and that's RJ. You know. Oh, there you are. Or it would be funny is RJ pays somebody $20 to pretend he's RJ. I take some stranger to my house, and RJ's in the car. I'll recognize the voice though. It was the sun elves that caused the Drow splinter. I always liked the Drow elves. I love the Drow elves. And Sandy Peterson, he always says that Gary Gygax said. He goes every Drow elf is always good because everybody wants to play Drow elf against type. He goes that means there's more good Drow elves than evil, but Drow elves are supposed to be evil. Okay, we're still talking about this faction. I never get tired of elves. Yeah, for my comic book, Heroic Tales and Patriarch, I always say it's superheroes meets Dungeons and Dragons meets H.P. Lovecraft, and I think you could see that in the last story, the Subterranean Homesick Blues. You know, they even reference. I call it Dungeon Crawl because I don't want to. So, Dungeon Crawl is the role playing game that Patriarch's family plays. Because
okay, I'm going to throw you off track a little bit more, John. Did you ever think that Byrne's first story arcs for Alpha Flight was his basically taking D&D characters and turning them into superheroes? Because you got Puck, and he's basically a dwarf. You got Sasquatch. You got Shaman, who's magic caster. You know, you have all these characters, and it's almost like he's trying to take D&D and put it into the real world.
It's funny that you said that because it does fit because Aurora and his sister Aurora Nuts are elves.
Yeah,
and then Vindicator is the paladin.
Snowbird is basically a snow nymph.
She's a druid, right?
Shaman would be more the druid, I think.
The shaman's the wizard.
Yeah.
And Snowbird's the druid. She literally turns into animals. That's like druid's big thing.
True. Yes.
Yeah, you're right. And I heard rumors that John Byrne used to be a Dungeons and Dragons player. So you might be right. Now I have another question that I'll never be able to ask him. Every couple of months I email him to see if he'll come on my channel. And I'm sure every couple of months he goes, "Who is this jerk?" You know, he doesn't do anything that he doesn't want to do. And God bless him. I hope to be so rich that I don't do anything I don't want to do either. I do a lot of things I don't want to do, like go to work.
You don't have to be rich to do that, John. You go ahead and do that.
I try to do it. I get in trouble. And it's funny because my wife messaged me. I'm driving home and I get a message. And whenever my wife messages me when I'm driving, I always panic. You know, oh, what happened? You know, there's a cop car and a van in front of our house. And I got to admit, for a minute, I'm like, they found me. But I didn't do anything. They're still there, right?
It's ICE coming after your wife. I mean, she is Canadian. You know, they're gonna.
Sorry, honey. Yeah. I voted for this, but they're still there. But then I was like, wait a minute, I didn't do anything wrong, and I pulled up right behind the cops because my wife has to pull out of the driveway because now that I'm working later shift, she leaves earlier. So I was just waiting for the cop to be like, why are you pulling out of you? What's going on? Just going in my driveway. But anyway, any thoughts on the leaks coming from the Netflix Chronicles of Narnia? Yeah, I'm not watching it. They say it has nothing to do with the source material. A woman's going to play Aslan. It's not Narnia. You know, they might as well have lightsabers.
Yeah, I agree. I was never that much into Narnia. My little sister, she loved Narnia, and while we were always playing, Dungeons and Dragons and reading comics and stuff like that. But she loved Narnia. I think it's going to destroy it.
John, there is only 6 in my world. What the chat's so far behind, I don't reference this. Back when we were kids and didn't care about food being healthy or not. Yeah, I still don't care. You can't say Return is when George started appealing to children. When Return had the Leia scene. Oh, yeah. That's what I said until he left Jabba's palace. Once they leave Jabba's palace, it's pandering to children. So there's 2.5 good Star Wars movies. Elves and Warhammer lore ripped open the rifts of chaos in the Warhammer 40k fantasy universe. They doomed galaxies where the magic project's going too far in contact. Yeah, I really like Warhammer. I like it so much I won't play it or buy anything about it because that is an expensive rabbit hole. My buddies over here play it. I got some board games based on Warhammer. Like you can see, I got Space Hulk over here someplace. Yeah, underneath Conan, right there, Space Hulk. And I got Forbidden Stars over there, still in shrink wrap. That goes for like $600 now.
Okay, somebody explain to me. I don't know if we're going to do this tonight or not, but somebody needs to explain to me how old Warhammer became what it is today. Because to me, I still have posters from the old Warhammer that I got from the comic shop, and it's basically just a world of elves, or sorry, a world of dwarves, right? And it's all old world D&D fantasy.
Well, there's two. Well, it's one big world as far as I know, but there was Warhammer Fantasy, and it was a D&D kind of game. Dwarves, elves, magic users, paladins, stuff. And then there's Warhammer 40k, which is 40,000 years in the future from that fantasy game. And there's the Imperium of Man and space spanning galaxies. So there is dwarves, elves, orcs, gene stealers and everything, because it's fantasy that achieve space flight and stuff. So it's more to me, it's more like Dune than Star Wars. Like it's so far in the past and society's crippled that a lot of these ships they don't even know how to repair anymore. And then I know like some of the mechs are infused with like spirits of dead pilots, so there's like necromancy fused with machine. But then they changed the lore so much in Warhammer. But yeah, so there's I think originally there was Fantasy Warhammer, and then somewhere along the way they came with Warhammer 40k, and the 40k became so popular that whenever you say Warhammer, you mean Warhammer 40k. I don't even think people play the Fantasy Warhammer anymore. I played the Fantasy Warhammer. And then there's a role-playing game of 40k, but I won't play the miniatures game because it looks too fun. You got to cut the stuff off the sprues, glue them together, and you have to. I mean, you could do whatever you want in your own house, but most people won't play unless each miniature has at least 3 different colors on. I got no time to do that. So it looks fun. It looks fun, but I'm sure cocaine is fun too. But it's if Han shot lasted, why did George have to diddly move his head in the remake? Han shot first. I saw it in the movie theater. And Han Solo was a drug smuggling murderer who had a change of heart at the end of the movie, and Han Solo was so bad and so scary that when he actually came and shot that TIE fighter that saved Luke during the trench run, people stood up and cheered because we thought he was gone. When you didn't know anything about Star Wars and you saw it for the first time, believe me, you cheered at that scene because you bought it. You knew Han Solo was a bad guy who was greedy. He was in for himself. He nailed that role. Nobody else could play Han Solo. And then when he came back, we were like, oh my God, it worked. It worked. The Ewoks were cannibals. Well, they weren't cannibals. They didn't eat other Ewoks. They ate humans. There's no evidence of them eating other Ewoks, but they might. Maybe they ate the other tribes of Ewoks.
Oh, pygmies. That's kind of like here because pygmies are cannibals, right?
Oh, he's talking about my character. My character, the metaphysician, had to study and learn magic. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. Me and my wife, like that's how we met online discussing Harry Potter, believe it or not. And my biggest problem with Harry Potter is the racism. You were born with these gifts. So you're either a magician or you're not. I like 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 right now, I could be a quarterback. There's nothing stopping me from being a quarterback. Yes, I know you can say, yeah, you could go. No, but I could be the world's worst quarterback. I could not make it into the NFL, but I'm still a quarterback. I dress up. I do the stuff. I have the football. I get a bunch of my friends and I play football. I'm a quarterback. I'm just not a professional quarterback. It's not like you're born a quarterback. I don't like that you're born with magic powers. I think like mutants are lazy. I was going to say there's no mutants in my comic books, but I realized one of the characters kind of is a mutant, but not really. And sooner or later, you'll figure out why not really. But I just don't like that you're born with these gifts and there's nothing you could do. Like, I like anybody could be a magician if you study hard enough and if you practice hard enough and you know where to get this information. So my character, the metaphysician, he's a regular guy who learned magic spell, just like a regular guy learned how to be a surgeon and a regular guy learned how to be an engineer, if that's what you're asking, Jewel. And I know Tolkien is the opposite, because you can't be you can be. There is necromancy, and regular humans can be necromancers in Tolkien's world. My favorite D&D characters to play are wizards and sorceresses. To me, RJ, do you make a distinction between the wizards, like just a mage and the sorcerer?
There's a difference between I don't even know what it is. I'm not sure if it's sorcerer would be the right word for it. What's okay? There's a wizard and there's the Oathbreakers. The Oathbreakers are different than wizards. In my what do you call
Warlock?
No, it's not warlock. Yes, warlock. You're right. Yes, warlocks and sorcerer and wizards. I say wizards and sorcerers would be the same, whereas warlocks are different, and of course necromancers are completely different. So that would be my distinction.
Literally, the etymology of the word warlock is oathbreaker.
Yes.
So, to me, a wizard is somebody who learns magic. The power is not innate within them. They learn how to manipulate magic, whatever. A sorcerer is somebody who taps into a source. That source being a rock, a sword, a god, an angel, a devil, a dragon, or whatever. Some being that's able to share its power, and then you could replicate magic you could replicate magic through a source. So that's the way I look at it. And to me,
I always thought that sorcerer came from ensorcel, which basically like Circe. So you would enthrall other creatures and human beings to your will. That's always that ensorcel came, but I'm not entirely sure on that for sorcerer.
Yeah, well, yeah. So like a sorcerer I don't in my way of thinking, a D&D cleric is a sorcerer because they're tapping into a power of a deity or something like that. And to me, an warlock, and these are my house rules. So if you want to argue with me, that's fine. But these are my house rules in my comic book and my role playing game, if I ever make it. A warlock would be a sorcerer who made a deal with the power and then broke it. So kind of like, literally, I can't explain it better than that. And then Jewel
so it would be basically like a cleric who abandoned his oath.
Yes, literally. That's a warlock. Yeah, you're an oathbreaker. You swore to uphold the Mogadishu, and then you broke the rules of Mogadishu. You are forever a warlock. Depending upon the source, the deity, the deviant, whatever. The rules will change. You know what I mean? So like if I was to make like a deities and demigods for my rule, you worship Dagda, and then you're a cleric of Dagda, and if you break the rules, these will be your punishments. This is what you get for being an oathbreaker. I gotta say this. There's something satisfying about just a pure fighter. I'm with you, Jewel. It's just fun. Although if my stats are good enough, I would be a paladin. But if I can't be a paladin, just a pure fighter, just going out there, grabbing that sword and killing goblins. It's so satisfying. I recommend an arcanist, and it's a cross between arcanist, is a gizmo guy. Think of a sorcerer that could change his spells like a wizard, but the downside is they don't have as many spells as a sorcerer. To me, a sorcerer, like the benefit is like it's not exhausting because you're not tapping into your own reserves or anything like that. But there's rules. If you're a cleric, you have to further the wants and needs. And if you're tapping into a demon, they're going to be tricky. That's why I loved it. 100%. You have to take one for the team. You have to deport them all. My wife's a sweetheart. My wife's nice. She ordered me these from Canada, right? RJ, do you ever see these in the stores?
Humpty Dumpty, yeah.
Yeah, we don't have them in America, so she orders stuff like that for me from Canada. That's all it takes.
They were probably grown around where I live, John. Let's put it that way.
RJ, John, the Witch of Endor conjured a demon that impersonated the prophet Samuel. Yeah. God did not give her power to read. Yeah. But she didn't want to do it. She wanted to follow the rule, and then she was surprised that it actually happened. And was it a demon? Because if you remember, Samuel fell from grace with God. So it was all God's plan to basically get Samuel out of the way so David could become the king. So was it a demon? Was it a demon doing God's will? I don't know. That's for theologians to decide. Or my faulty memory to misinterpret wrong. Your choice. Ryan, you probably know the Bible better than I do. I don't think that's someone's supposed to take away from it. It surprises her, which indicates she didn't do it. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. RJ, there's Warhammer. There we go. George Morales got my back. RJ, Chaos won in the Warhammer, and the world blew up. Yeah, then they restarted it, the Age of Sigmar, which pissed off a lot of people, and now they're kind of walking it back. Yeah, Warhammer is fantasy, while 4K is sci-fi. Yes. Now we're getting into some Warhammer lore. All right. Age of Sigmar is the GOS Sigmar. Gather the fragments and rebind them. Okay. RJ, how long do you think until Starmer's Labor government will hold on? He came out early and said that he was not going to step down at any cost.
You have to be forced out. That's all that's going to happen there.
Yeah, all these liberal tyrants have to be forced out. Do you think there's any hope for England?
Again, I don't know if you've seen. Did I post this on my X account or not? It was basically, I said, how long until people realize that V for Vendetta is a manual of how to run a society, not a cautionary tale. I think that that's where England needs to go if they're ever going to salvage anything.
Yeah, I am getting a lot of satisfaction in seeing John Cleese eating his words. He was such a progressive cheerleader for so long, and now he's finally realized it. So I said, isn't it nice to realize that all those people you've been calling alt-right Nazis and making fun of were right all along? Maybe you shouldn't have been so cozy to him. Of course, he doesn't pay attention to anything I say on Twitter, but I will take the moral victory.
I went and saw him in person. I don't know how long ago. It was like 5-6 years ago at least. And he was still pushing the, but he had left England by then and went to live in the Caribbean.
Yeah. He probably went back to London and was like, I was wrong. My first Dragon Age character was a mage, and my Mass Effect Shepard was a sentinel, flinging magic. I'm afraid to play video games. I'll get nothing else done. Yeah, I heard that what's his name, Henry Cavill wants to make a Warhammer movie. This guy needs a solid victory. They've been screwing him over. I feel bad for him. He's one of the few actors I actually like.
I think this is probably the case. What he's talking about, the old White Dwarf magazine.
Yeah.
One single picture that somebody drew of a completely separate thing than what exists right now, and someone took inspiration from it and created an entire world.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, White Dwarf was the British version of Dragon magazine. I played as a mage in my first Dragon Age, but you can't get with the princesses, so my second game walkthrough up with the warrior. I don't know, RJ. Me and my friends were too dorky to role play, romancing and seducing the princess and stuff like that. That was just we didn't really do it. It's like I'm going to ask Carl to role play my elven princess lover. No thanks. Not enough racism in Harry Potter. The men supposed to be caretakers of the Warhammer followed feminists to make changes to the lore and allowed this unique world to bend real. Yep. And they are ridiculous because the Space Marines were supposed to be these hulking male giants, and then these women were like, "We want female Space Marines. We want female Space." And it's like, well, you got what do they call them? The Sisters of Battle or something like that. The Sisters of War. I don't know enough about it. And like, no, we want to be Space Marines. It's like, then pretend you're Space Marines. In your rules, at your house, you could do whatever you want. No, they want it officially in the rule book, but they don't play Warhammer. I don't see groups of lesbians playing Warhammer. Does anybody? No, they just wanted to mess with something that people liked. I call it leg lifting. They just wanted to lift their leg on Warhammer. And then not Wizards of the Coast. What are they called? I can't think of the company that runs Warhammer. They kowtowed to them and they took a hit. And then these people left and they're moving on to the next. Never bow to the woke mob. Never. I replayed the game so many times, stacking my mage that my mage was killing dragons just as the warrior did. There comes a point when your character becomes too powerful. And there's nothing ruins a character, whether it's superheroes, wizards, that's just too powerful.
What was the do you ever play the extension Deities and Divine, where basically I think it's first edition D&D, where your characters have become so overpowered that they put out this extension for the game to make people think, okay, now you can level up to become a god. But when they actually play the game, what they're doing is they're taking up so much magic that they destroy the world. And the DM doesn't tell that to the players until it actually happened.
Oh, I never did that. We kind of got to the point where like we kind of retired characters around 13th, 14th level. They just got too powerful. Okay. Oh, Zachtan's leaving. Good night, Zachtan. The last 20 years has taught me that most things are determined by biology. Yeah. And I will say, I've always been a conspiracy theorist. But since COVID, I don't even believe if the sun rises in the east anymore. I'm challenging everything. I don't believe nothing. And I don't want to get into what's going on in the news past couple of days, but some conspiracy theories, I wish they just stayed as conspiracy theories. I cannot believe how people are sitting still through everything that's going on right now. John, and D&D now, a wizard studies for their spells while sorcerers just have them. A wizard could change their spells where sorcerers. Okay. Sounds like my ideas of sorcery and magic are the same. Sorcery could cast a small variety of spells, but they cast more often. Wizards have a greater variety of spells, but can act right, because a wizard is limited by fatigue and material components and things like that. Okay, everybody's telling me the difference in the rules. Okay, basically think the sorcerer can cast 6 days. Well, the wizard. It always bothered me that a wizard could cast one fireball a day. It's like, no. It's like saying an electrician can only make one splice a day. To me, it would be limited by, make the material components difficult or expensive or hard to maintain. That to me is a in-world limitation of the wizard. But to just arbitrarily say once a day, I never liked that. So I did away with that too in my house rules. Looking around,
there's an anime character. I can't remember her name off the top of my head. It's an isekai character. The only she's a mage. The only thing she can cast is fireball, and she gets completely exhausted by it. She can only do it once a day, but her fireball is so devastating that it could destroy a city.
Wow. So like she's a danger to her party then?
Oh yeah.
Looking around, I found this fantasy came first, then Wizards GW Games Workshop decided to make a sci-fi game. They threw the Warhammer's world as a feature, saying the two worlds might be related. Yeah, that's what I thought too. Yeah, hinted that Warhammer Fantasy takes place in the Eye of Terror, and then the 40K third edition they broke the link. Okay, King Saul, not Samuel. Okay, I told you my memory is bad. Yeah, Samuel is the prophet. Thank you. Did anybody watch that? There's a TV show, right? Angel Studios, a King Saul, or Samuel, or David. Yeah, David. I believe Jonathan would have been a better king than David. John, I sent you pics of Age of. Yeah, I saw the pics. And, I'm trying not to look at my phone while I'm talking to RJ. Although I keep doing it because it keeps making noise. There's hope for the entire Anglosphere, but there's hope. I hope so too. Deus Vault. John, I'm hearing good things about the Highlander movie with Henry Cavill, so hopefully he can find. Yeah, me too. He's one of the few actors I actually like. What are your thoughts on the new Highlander remake with Henry Cavill and Dave? Do you have any thoughts?
I haven't even heard about this, so no thoughts.
Yeah, I finally watched the Highlander and Highlander 2 a couple of maybe a couple months ago. They're okay.
I saw Highlander at the drive-in theater when it first came out. So it was a massive thing back then for, people like us. Let's put it that
way. Yeah. So I don't have any thoughts, but I will support Henry Cavill because, like I said, I could probably name like less than 5 actors that I actually like. Henry Cavill being one of them, Keanu Reeves, Brendan Fraser. I think it's the same for everybody. There's like a couple of actors that everybody likes. I'm not even sure if I could list any more. Like even actors that I do like. What's his name? Jon Stewart. Jean-Luc Picard. Even he annoys me. So, bearing anything that comes out that just drives me nuts, I will support it. I know that's a weird thing to say, but you know what I'm talking about. If all of a sudden I find out that it's woke nonsense, I won't support it. That's why I like the Darker Day. Like Dark Sun was a good setting. Dark Sun and
what is the magic systems for Dark Sun?
Dark Sun is D&D, but D&D had these books that were just pre-generated worlds, and I always liked to make my own stuff. But I always bought the D&D stuff because I just thought it was fun. And the Dark Sun setting it's a harsh earth like this. It's as close to D&D is going to get to fantasy. So the whole world is hot. The whole world is a desert, and magic is tough and hard. So just imagine it's like you're playing D&D in the Arizona desert or the Sahara desert. There's caravans and hidden oases and stuff like that. It's a very harsh, it's probably as close to Conan now that I think about it.
Well, the way I heard that the world described is basically D&D is European, where it's based on agrarianism and farming. So it's Norse mythology and the rest that's thrown in for most of the European. Whereas Dark Suns is basically Egyptian, Middle Eastern, which is based on a water system rather than agrarian. So the whole thing is control of water. And so you get more, basically it's desert societies based on Tigris and Euphrates. And so that's where they would take it from.
Okay. But I will say that Dark Sun, there might be a Dark Sun inspired story in Heroic Tales at some point. Or at least what I think Dark Sun was. I never played Dark Sun, and I never played Spelljammers. And I always wanted... At first, I was horrified by Spelljammers. Spelljammers was a D&D setting where you actually took ships and flew into space. But that's not rocket ships, like dragon boats that had enchanted sails and you could fly in space. And I was like, nope, this is ridiculous. And now I'm like, that sounds fun.
Spelljammers was a good comic.
Yeah, Starjammers was a DC comic. This is Spelljammers. I'm saying it wrong.
Oh, okay.
Spelljammers.
I got them mixed up.
Spelljammers. It's wizards using their magic to make ships fly into space, and you go to other planets. And there's but it was like getting dangerously close to Warhammer, because there's now you got flying ships full of orcs and flying ships full of mind flayers and stuff. As a woman who lives fantasy, I hate that awful Karens and Beckys are going to. Yes, I hate. Can you just imagine? My wife likes Hallmark movies, and I like that my wife likes Hallmark movies because she watches them. They're sweet. She's in a good mood. She's pleasant. Then she wants to make cookies. And let's face it, I win when my wife watches Hallmark movies. She's pleasant and wants to make cookies. Go watch more Hallmark movies. Now, can you imagine if a bunch of men were like, we love Hallmark movies. We've always loved Hallmark movies, but we think there should be more boobs and guns and violence in Hallmark movies and totally change Hallmark movies. You know what I mean? And then the women don't watch it anymore. And then the men just leave because they just wanted to change Men don't do that. And I'm sorry, women. What's going on that all these women want to join things and then change things and then leave? I don't see any women reading Marvel comics now. I don't see, women playing Warhammer. Literally, there's a Warhammer store around the block. I go there once in a while and check out board game stuff. There's no women sitting around playing Warhammer. It's all big, smelly guys like me farting and painting their orcs, And it's funny because when I bring up this controversy, there's like non-political guys, and they just like, yeah, and it's almost like they just don't want to hear it. Poor guys, let them play their freaking painted miniature games. The Immortal Rules. Saul's Son. Yeah, that guy was great. I love how we're having a D&D discussion, a Star Wars discussion, a Bible discussion. This show is fun. I like Saul too. I didn't like David very much. Got to go. Have an amazing. See you, Dave. See you, Dave, if you're still around. Good. Can't wait to get the comic, everybody. I urge you, check out Perfect 10. You could go on my comic and get it now. And Sinbad the Wizard was using his life force to cast strong spells. In the first edition, some spells were aging you. Yeah, I remember if you drank a haste potion, you aged a year. RJ, you talking about Konosuba Megumi?
Konosuba, yes. Megumi, I forgot her name. You are right, George.
Dark Sun, yeah, there was a lot of psionics in Dark Sun. I remember that. Yes. In Dark Sun, the magic destroys the world. Wow. I got to break out my Dark Sun rule book. It's been years since I don't even know if I read it. RJ, what are your thoughts on James O'Barr's The Crow? Tony's been trying to get me to read it.
And The Crow was never my cup of tea. It's very stylized and I love the art, but the storyline is not something that appeals to me.
Yeah, I never read it. I just didn't like it because it was just like, I just had an irrational prejudice towards it, kind of like the Turtles, and I was proven wrong. The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles at least the original comics were excellent. I'm up to issue 4, and I'm really liking it. So, I'll try to find some Crow comics. I just haven't been buying any back issues lately. I got so many comics to read. So next time, if I find it affordable, I'll get some Crow. I'll eat the Crow. That is why Arcane was so rare, because it destroyed the world while the Dragon Sorcerer God Kings made the people worship him. So no divine. That's why they made the sign. Oh, is that the premise in Dark Sun? I also the one setting I never got was the Oriental Adventures, and they had like a Japanese Chinese mashup world. I never got that book.
I still have that book. My brother had it.
Oh yeah, you had it. Yeah, Spelljammers was my second. Yeah, I never got to play it. Henry Cavill, Chris Pratt, Morgan Freeman, James Woods, Denzel Washington, Tom Felton, Keanu Reeves. Okay, that's a good list. That's a good list. I forgot Chris Pratt. I do like Chris Pratt. That's a good list. Yeah, all right. I can't argue with anybody on that list. Tom Felton is surprisingly cool guy. I saw a documentary about like the Harry Potter kids, and Tom Felton is like the coolest, nicest, like him and the Ron Weasley guy, whatever his real name is. They seem like good guys. And I think they're the two that had children. Go figure. That probably grounds you. For my top 3 in favorite order is Dragonlance. Dragonlance. I got the Dragonlance comics. They're pretty good. Spelljammer, then the Forgotten Realms. Forgotten Realms was a good comic setting too. A big homage to I told you there's so much D&D in my comics. Issue 5 of heroic tales is you're gonna see the Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms influence all over that comic. You'll see it. You'll see it. Original Spelljammer was cool. I never played it. The remake for the modern audience was not. I gotta buy some. I just want to get an old school Spelljammer book. Does anybody know what is the original Spelljammer book? Love the Elven Harbinger class ship, would not only look beautiful, but was fast and heavily armed. Yeah. In Solo Legion. Yeah, I might as well show you. This is, thank you. I don't know if you were here. This is Ryan's book. He sent me a copy. You didn't have to, Brian. I hope you didn't feel like you were extorted. Nobody has to send me a comic book or anything or super chat or buy my book to be on my channel. I just like talking about comic books. In Solo Legion lore, I make the difference between miracles as good, magic as evil, and manipulating real physics as neutral. Okay. That's the beauty about your comic, is you make the rules. You just got to be consistent. That to me, I think a lot of writers have a problem is the consistency. I would consider it a battle cruiser while the Man o' War was the destroyer. The Armada class was okay. They're talking Warhammer. Good night. Have an interview in the morning. Good luck, Arkham. And yes, that page you sent me looks beautiful. Looks beautiful. He just sent me a page, but I can't look at it. I gave a cursory look at it while RJ was talking. 5th edition Spelljammer sucked, but Dungeon Magazine did a 3rd edition version of it. It was so much better. Wow. So Spelljammer made it into the 5th edition. I don't have irrational prejudices. They're all rational. I have a lot of rational prejudices, but I irrationally hated the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and the Crow. I admit that. That was the magic setting for Dark Side. Oh, it sounds more interesting than I thought. If you're curious, it's in Dungeon Magazine issue number 2. What? The original Spelljammers? Ron Weasley was Rupert Grint. Thank you. That was going to drive me crazy. John RJ, have either of you read TSR's comic that DC put out? Yeah, I just pointed to my stack of comics over here. I got them all over here. I think I'm up to issue 19 of the Dragonlance comic and 22 of the other comic.
AD&D. So it was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons they had put out.
Yeah, DC. They were surprisingly really good. I really enjoy them. I used to buy AD&D right before, last couple of years before it ended. That's when I started to get into it. As far as I know, they never collected them, but they're only like $1 or $2 a piece. So that's the beauty of back issues, is you can get great back issues for pretty much cheaper than modern comics. So I heartily recommend that. The artist on both of them, I think, was Tajano Wood, I think, who's one of my favorite colorists, but I might be wrong. Probably am. I always am. You talking about the box set or the novel for Spelljammer? I'm talking like, what would be the original Spelljammer role playing stuff? I don't want to get the novels. I don't want to go down that rabbit hole and start reading the D&D novels. I've never read Star Wars novels, Star Trek novels. By God, I'm not going to read D&D novels with your words books without pictures. Does anyone care if I say something funny about the Spelljammer novel? It does have spoilers. I'm going to say no. RJ, do you care?
No.
So anybody in the chat, you have 5 minutes to say yes or no, and then go ahead, spoil away, because I'm not going to read the novel. Wow, we're caught up. So RJ, you're reading Dr. Fate. What was that? Because last week we mentioned them.
Yes. Well, we mentioned we were talking about Magic for Marvel, and then when I went to pull that out, I pulled out the Dr. Fate as well, because a couple of things I was posting on X were Dr. Fate pages from Immortal Dr. Fate, and I said to myself, I need to go back and read that. I want to see Giffen's art, because it gives me a new appreciation for it when I'm doing the black and white for Fade to Blue. And it's like Giffen's work really lends itself to black and white, if he ever did a black and white. Although he can draw some beautiful women. Inez in Immortal Dr. Fate, it's like everything's this crunchy, dark thing, and you got these monsters, and then you got Dr. Fate's wife, and it's like, I can't believe you put that in there. That's just, it's so much of a contrast to everything else in the book. She's gorgeous. He draws her
It's
amazing.
funny that you said that, because I always thought Inza Nelson was the sexiest superhero wife in all of comics. There's something, she just had like an exotic. She had like the braids in her hair and everything, right?
Not
Later on.
always.
Yeah, maybe not always, but something sexy about her. Her and Margot Lane, the Spirit's girlfriend. Not the Spirit, the Shadow's
The
girlfriend.
shadows, yeah.
But that they wrote that as, if you ask me, they wrote that as explicitly sexual. Not explicit in like a porno, but they were a couple. Whereas, Clark Kent and everybody else, it was always like that coy, whatever. Yeah. So you said there were rules that you picked up. It's been so long that I've read it that I don't remember the rules. Can you tell us some of the rules for Dr. Fate's Magic?
But let me think. I can't remember, but here's the thing. For, let's say, early 80s DC, there is a very, I picked it up this way. There's a very Christian vibe to the entire thing, because Crisis on Infinite Earths has the entire universe being born out of a hand that created everything, right? And then slightly after that, I think it was in Immortal Dr. Fate, he got himself into Dr. Fate, actually, the character. So he got himself into such a bind. I think it was in the third book that none of his spells would actually work. So he cast the most powerful thing he could possibly cast, and it was a light fixture. So it was a cross. It was what it was. It was an ornate cross. And
yeah, I remember that.
So, the systems always fall back to that in the early 80s for DC's beginning of continuity, but it falls off fairly quickly with the DeMatteis run for the actual, not the miniseries, but the actual run for Dr. Fate after that.
Who wrote that story where he cast the cross?
Oh, off the top of my head, I can't think.
No,
it's not DeMatteis.
Yeah.
No, I can't remember, but it's not DeMatteis.
Yeah, that was the 4-issue Prestige series.
I think it was 3-issue, but yes.
Yeah, but it was the Prestige. Yeah, I gotta read. Like I said, I remember vividly reading. I remember reading it. I don't remember the details in the story, but I remember I was living with my friends. We all rented a house, and I was just sitting on the couch. It was just like a beautiful summer day reading comics. It was so good. So Jewel, we're gonna get some of the spoilers. I don't know about being cheap. I used to spend like $20 on eBay to get Spectacular Spider-Man 125, 126, Spider-Woman. Yeah. What I'm saying is, like, key issues are going to be a lot of money, but for the most part, you could get really good cheap comics, like say the Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, from 120 to 130. That's 10 comics. So you spend $20 on 2 of the comics, but then the rest of the comics, like $3 or $4 each. That, think about 10 comics today would cost you $40. Yeah, $50. It's really a shame, the price of comics. Todd McFarlane. Anybody been following Twitter? Todd McFarlane. Somebody posted what's the eternal question: what's more important, art or story? And I've always had the shocking opinion that art will get your eyes on the comic. So if you have bad art, your comic is dead on arrival. And people will buy comics because it looks good, but people will drop the series if it's boring. So writing is important. Art is important, but art is more important because your comic's dead on arrival without good art. And Todd McFarlane is just like, I could sell a comic that's written, by a dog if I drew it. I'm like, yeah, but nobody's going to buy number 2. Like, when did you guys all stop reading Spawn? Around issue 11, issue 12. It stunk. Look at all the early Image comics. They all got canceled. Nobody talks about Wildcats. Yes, they all made millions of dollars, but the speculator boom crashed. People walked away from comics, and now comics are hurting. Comic book stores and stuff. Congratulations, Todd McFarlane. You sold Spawn #1, but now comic book stores are hurting. Sorry, George Morales. This just got me ranting about other stuff.
Well, Spelljammer, I looked it up just now, but Spelljammers, yeah, DC did publish Spelljammers.
Oh, now I know what pack issues I'm buying.
Because I used to read it, and it is D&D. You got Umber Hulks and everything in there.
Yeah.
So it's very much D&D.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. There was in DC published a Forgotten Realms book.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
A Dragonlance book, and I didn't know a Spelljammer book. Now I got to check out the Spelljammer book. I really liked them. John, RJ, who's the better artist for Lobo? Keith Giffen or Simon Bean? I will say nobody, because Lobo sucks. Lobo's
yeah, I hate Lobo as a character.
There's Lobo, Deadpool, and Cable are the triumvirate of characters.
Bad ideas.
Yeah, I was going to say something crude, but then I have to watch myself when I'm with RJ. I always watch my language when I'm with RJ. But the first chapter of the next book, the sidekick gets killed off. By the time I get to the fourth book, I stopped caring about the new sidekick because they were just going to kill him off. Okay. I skipped. The Spelljammer novel is a series of 6 books where the main character is the sidekick. In the books, the sidekick becomes the main character. Okay, and here's part 2. But in the first chapter of the next book, the sidekick gets killed off. By the time I got to the fourth book, I stopped caring about the new sidekick because they were just, really? So they always kill off the sidekicks? The whole Lords of Order thing was introduced in the early 70s by Steve Englehart and Walt Simonson. Yeah, that. I think because they were inspired by Michael Moorcock. That's what I think, because they were, both of them were Michael Moorcock fans. Good art will get you started, and a good story will keep you around. Yeah, look at Image Comics right now. I said this in the Twitter fight, and nobody acknowledged me. I'd like to think it's because of my superior brain, but look at Image right now. Who's the big sellers? Robert Kirkman, Jeff Johns. All the writers are the draws in the Image right now. Yes, they got great art, but Walking Dead, that sold on Kirkman's writing. Invincible. I'm not saying Ryan Ottley was a bad artist. He was a good artist, but people liked the story of Invincible. Walking Dead, the art wasn't that great. It was good comic book art, but it wasn't like Arthur Adams level art, By the way, Spectacular Spider-Man 125-26 are the 2 most based comic issues Gay Marvel has ever made outside of the Punisher. Are these new? Because Spectacular Spider-Man 25, didn't that come out like 25 years ago, if I'm remembering correctly? Yeah, Jan Duursema art. Yes, you're right. Yeah, the Spelljammer comic was not as good as the Forgotten Realm comics done by the beautiful art of Jan Duursema and the Dragonlance book by Rodman. You're absolutely right. The art, Jan Duursema's art is so good, and the coloring is so good. I forget if it's John O'Wood, and I can't remember the other, Glynis Wynn. I forget who the colorist was. But if I remember correctly, they were a husband-wife team that did the art and the color. So
they had 5 books out in total then, because they had AD&D as well. It was a separate book.
Right. They had basic Dungeons & Dragons. Yes, you're right. And then they had Dragonlance, then they had Forgotten Realms, and then Spelljammer. Yeah. And then there was an annual that tied them all together, if I remember correctly. I never understood Lobo. Was he a character inspired by the popularity of the Punisher? I never understood Lobo either. To me, he was just like what a nerd thinks a cool guy should be. And I'm sorry for people in the chat who like Lobo. I'm not trying to hurt your feelings or anything. I just never got the character. And they always drew him in like a thong and stuff like that. I just didn't get it. You sons of bitches, fratches. I think they were just trying to outdo Wolverine. Yeah, they did killing sidekicks every book. You could pretty much pick up the entire Shadowline saga in the dollar bill. Yep. Yeah. Search, if you go to comic book, I always look at the dollar bins. There's always so much. But I got so many comics, I usually have everything. They killed him off for the very first chapter. Yeah, that's a really good way to establish love for a character. Lobo is a Marvel character that, for some reason, at DC, that kind of makes sense. And the Punisher is a DC character that, for some reason, no, because DC is too squeamish to actually kill people. Remember, DC made the Vigilante. In the very first issue, he ended up playing tennis against the judge rather than shooting him. I think DC is too squeamish to have a Punisher. Although they did have Wild Dog, but that only lasted like 4 issues. Then he showed up in a couple of Action Comics, and then they quietly forgot about that character. Yes. Okay. Yes, you're right. 80s and 90s. Yes, you're right. Yeah, because I Spectacular Spider-Man was my Spider-Man. I got it from issue 1. You know, Jan Deceiver created Darth Talent and ALS Sikora, while Ron Randall proved on the open window of Power Girl and did the Crimson Fox, what Ghibli did to Psylocke. Okay, yeah, Crimson Fox was a character I just never liked. Just a silly costume. A silly costume will ruin. A cool costume will go a long way, and a silly costume will ruin a character.
Speaking of Power Girl, there was a whole bunch of different books that used magic in DC, because you had like, what is it, Arak, Son of Thunder. You got Warlord. They had their own magic system in that. Then there was the Power Girl was what the heck was it, the Atlanteans, was it Aaron?
Area.
Yeah, that was it. And each of them had their own magic systems that they in their storylines too.
Don't forget Gem World.
Oh yeah,
Amethyst. Yeah, Amethyst. That's yes. And that was surprisingly good.
It was.
It was supposed to be based. It was supposed to be like, let's hedge our bets, so we'll make like a sorcery comic book for girls.
Yeah, it was basically a girl toy line to compete with something like She-Ra.
And it was really good. It had that really good Ernie Chan artwork, you know. So, and back then they were pros, so they committed to the bit. It was a good series. Not Gem World. It was Amethyst, Princess of Gem World. Yes. It was really good, and it was kind of like Captain Marvel. Like she was a regular girl in our world, and then boom, she would Narnia over to Gem World. The way I heard it, Lobo was DC's answer to the overtop like Wolverine and the Punisher, a parody, but Alan Grant was the one that could write him. Yeah, I agree. I just first off, like, was he as strong as Superman, but he killed? To me, that ruins it. Like, the Punisher is a regular human who kills, fine. But once you're like at Superman level, you don't need to kill. If Superman kills, then he's not Superman. Like, he's super. He can come up with another solution. I know he killed the Phantom Zone people, but he didn't kill them. He put them in the Phantom Zone. Yeah, those were good books. Absolutely good books. Arion. And remember they made Power Girl like a descendant of Arion for a while?
Yes.
Like, to be a trick, you know. And then I love Jeff Johns' solution with her. She's the sole survivor of a universe that got destroyed. You know? It was so obvious it worked. 25-26, based on the bad guy talking about sob story, sickle mother, and needing money in one day. Okay. I got to go back and read these. I got to go back and read them. You're making me intrigued. John, have you ever read Marvel's Crystar, the Crystal Warrior, the 8th issue where Danzig got... I know that Fabrizio Elo showed me that. We were talking comic books one day. We did a 10 covers challenge. I showed 10 covers. He showed 10 covers. And Brian Bow showed 10 covers. And that blew me away. That Danzig literally ripped off a Crystar comic. And I only have the first issue. And Fabrizio promised me to get the rest of the issues of Crystar and Sector, the Insect Warrior. They're surprisingly good. And they're cheap, so I'll pick them up. You don't have to convince me to pick up some comics. Then one of his fellow criminals like, bro, you've had enough money. You do this because you like being a criminal. I do think that a lot of criminals do it because they're addicted to it. Also because it says Julia Carpenter Spider-Woman is one of the only 3 based characters at Marvel. Like, till this day or back then. You know, to this day, I'd be amazed that anybody's still based. And why do you say Julia Carpenter is based? I don't remember. You're probably right. I just don't remember. So anything I finally got up to all the comments.
I think I got it out of my system to talk about magic systems.
Okay, it was a fun topic. I'm glad you picked the topic. We talked. Yeah, again, I can pontificate about this paperclip over here for 2 hours if you could. I had a new partner at work today, and I said, when you're tired of hearing about my comic book, just say something. I don't mind if you tell me to shut up. And he just started laughing. He was like Mr. Sports guy. Like, he knew everything about sports. The last thing he wanted to talk about is a 57-year-old man who still plays Dungeons and Dragons. But he's also 57. So we at least talked about the potential of retiring. And I've got to say that I'm glad he taught me stuff that I didn't know. I'm actually closer to retirement than I thought. If he's right. I got to check him out. Also because okay, you already said that. Julie Carpenter was the second Spider-Woman, right? The one with the black costume. Yes, the one that had a daughter too. Yeah, she was in the Secret Wars. Easy to convince. Go grab Life and Time of Scrooge McDuck after your Donald Duck. Okay, yeah, okay. I didn't like so. RJ, I don't know if you're talking, if you don't know what I'm talking about, but I bought the Walt Disney Donald Duck Treasury Collection. So it's the first Carl Barks Donald Duck, because I'm a comic book guy. I got a channel and stuff like that, and I never read a Donald Duck comic. And supposedly Carl Barks is this comic book god. And I got to say, there's 3 books, 3 hardcovers. The first one I wasn't too impressed with. But by the end of the 3rd book, I was like, this is great. I really liked it. It took me a while to get what he was doing, and I really, really liked it. But they're long out of print and they're expensive, so I got to pace myself. John, thank you for shouting out my comic tonight. That was great. No, yeah, you sent me a comic book. We talked. Like I said, I'm not a star effer. You know what I mean? Like, I'll talk to people. If you don't have a comic book, as long as you want to talk about comic books, you turn on your camera so I can see your face and have a conversation like normal humans, except for RJ, whose face I never, ever want to see.
Because I'm not a normal human.
He's not a normal human. It's funny that you said that. My friend Phil, he got, this was back, we were both in our 20s. He got a job. He just struck me as funny. He's a boring story out of nowhere. And he met a guy whose name was also Phil. So he goes, oh, that's funny. My name is Phil. And he's like, yes, my name is Phil too. And he goes, I'm like a man, but different. And my friend Phil was just like, okay. And, he only worked at this place for like a couple of weeks, but he was just like, I don't want to be around that guy. Like, this was the 20s. I'm like a man, but different. Okay. I'm going to leave. I'm going to walk backwards slowly and keep you in my sight. Don't get us started on magic systems. We've been talking for 2 hours about magic and magic systems. Based Marvel characters: Punisher, John Walker, Julie Carpenter. Yeah, I know the Punisher and John Walker, but forgive me for not remembering about Julia Carpenter. I just remembered that she was pregnant and kept her kid, and early Mickey Mouse comics were great. He fought villains. He used a gun and a knife, and in one issue, he faked his suicide. Wow. Fantagraphics version, because the Disney version censored a few stories. Yeah, I'm so mad. I'm looking right over there. I got this big box set of Tintin, and you could tell that there's one issue missing.
That's the Nazi issue, is it?
No, it's the Congo one, because they drew black people with big lips and everything like that.
Yeah. You go back to the Spirit. That's exactly. I mean, his sidekick was just like a monkey. But he wasn't a monkey.
I paid like $100 for this. I know what I'm buying. Don't censor me. So now I got to go get Tintin and Congo and stick it in there. And I got to make sure it's like of the same, you know what I mean? I hate that. Don't decide for me what I want. I wanted a complete collection of Tintin, good and bad, and let me decide. Like they were doing a controversy for the original Captain Marvel Shazam, and Tony's in the chat. He'll tell me the name of the character, but he had a black sidekick, as they called it, a pickaninny back then. And he came and went pretty quick. And they were thinking about just censoring that character. Like, okay, if you're going to make a $12 mass trade paperback for kids to read, I'm not happy, but I can understand it. But if you're making like a $60 hardcover, This is history that we're preserving. Don't censor my history. And that's what I feel. I bought Tintin because I wanted to read an important comic book in comic book history, and now you're censoring it on me. I don't like that. Don't like it one bit. I wouldn't have bought it if I'd known that. She's from Colorado, back when it was based. The mother and her general actions were based, aside from the one time when the Marvel editors had her poop on her. Yeah, that's Marvel editors. They got her. She wasn't herself in that moment. Oh, she wasn't pregnant. She already had well, she was pregnant at one point. Yeah, the Congo was problematic. Yeah. I don't know. Now I got to look to see if it's. I mean, if he's killing Nazis, then whatever. Well, I don't see why they would censor that. Anything you want to say, RJ? I'm going to go to sleep.
It's good. What is he saying? Oh, you want to talk magic systems? We had an entirely different magic system we didn't even mention was the Smurfs.
They have a magic system in the Smurfs?
Oh yeah.
I guess Gargamel is a wizard or something.
Oh, he's an alchemist, but yeah. Papa Smurf is a sorcerer, basically.
Oh, RJ, you read my comic. You read the Mary Sue story, right?
Yep.
That I didn't say it in the comic, but what that scientist discovered is my version of alchemy. To me,
right, because it was all about the stone, right?
Right. Basically that was, they were converting regular gold into this orichalcum. So in my world, all of the elements can be enhanced. So sooner or later, we'll find what all the elements. So gold turns into orichalc, and orichalc is it changes reality so that basically it warps reality so that humans can get superpowers. Helium does something else. Copper does something else. Oxygen does something else. And I got a list of a lot of, not all the elements, some of the elements I can't think of any, but I'll just say, hey, they haven't discovered that yet. But that's and then I'm going to have like traditional alchemy in the comic too, in issue 5, which you'll see a lot of Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms inspiration. Hey, we got Zade Comics over here. How you doing, Phil Diaz? Phil Diaz, check out The Man with No Strings. #1 is coming out any day now. This is a guy that found a printing press, fixed it, learned how to use it, and is now making his own comic books. How freaking cool is that? He had a job, and the job expanded next door. The next door had a printing shop in it. And rather than dismantle it, they learned how to use it and made comic books. This guy drove around the country to get parts. Talk about a guy. This is a go-getter right here. We're all going to be working for Zade someday, and happily working for Zade Comics someday. This guy's making his own comics. Awesome. I hope to publish with you someday if that is your route. And I said that to Ripper too. You should be picking up where Diamond Distributors fell apart. He's the guy with the money, and now he's got Ripper Sends. So go figure. Me and my friends had a joke that Smurfette was essentially a blonde wig and a dress that was pester. Oh my God. Okay, Smurfy, it's your turn. Smurf. Gosh damn it, I'm still sore from last time. In my world, orichalcum is the most precious metal in the world and has all the abilities of adamantine, mithril, and dragon metal combined. Well, adamantine is another mineral, is another element that's enhanced. Mithril is silver enhanced. When you use this process, gold becomes orichalc, silver becomes mithril, and I'm not telling you any others because that'll spoil future stories. My favorite is oxygen. Oh man, wait till you read what oxygen turns into. The character you're thinking about, John, is called Steamboat. Thank you, but I think it's the racist depictions of the Japanese that are really preventing any reprints from DC. Okay. I was working on a comic, and the premise was this was supposed to be a comic from the 40s in the Patriarch's world. I was going to have Renzo draw a framing sequence where one of the kids is in the attic, and he finds a CGC copy of Bikini Girl #1 at a 9.9, and he breaks it open and reads it. And then we go into that comic, and it was over the top bucktooth Japanese guys, and it was ridiculous. And my artist just disappeared. He got halfway through the book and then just disappeared. And it's so frustrating because the work he handed in was phenomenal. And I know he backed somebody else's book. Somebody was like, I know you're looking for this guy. He just backed this. So if you're watching this, I don't want to say any names. I hope you're well. Hope everything's working good. And if you ever want to come back and complete this story, let me know. It's too good to not be produced. But I don't want anybody else to do it, because he's halfway done. It looks so good. I can't see anybody else. RJ, you ever have that? An artist just disappear?
Not just disappear, but fall off. That's for sure.
They have a problem with Winsor McKay's Pixie character because it looks to them like a racial stereotype. Yeah, and also when Winsor McKay did Little Nemo in Dreamland, isn't there like a little black guy that just causes all the problems? That's got to be problematic in these days. You Latinos would joke about transgender. Leave Tony alone. Tony's a good guy. I heard unobtainium is difficult to obtain. Since value is done in base values of 10, like copper equals. Okay. So yeah, there's a D&D system where all the money and everything exchanges. Wonder Woman Golden have Jap characters. Yeah, that's true. That is true. Same with oh yeah, I was gonna say Captain America, but that's Marvel. Shows you how sleepy I'm getting. Electrum is between Silver and Gold D&D, but my world I made Electrum Gold Mithril. Yeah, that you could make up whatever rules you want in your game. So I actually got copper, silver, gold, and even platinum Mithril. Cool. All right, before we get into exchange rates of fantasy worlds, anything you want to say before we go, RJ?
Nope. No, I think that's pretty good. I think I very much thoroughly enjoyed everybody in the chat and talking about Magic.
Yep, me too. That was fun. So maybe if you have an idea for next week, shoot me an email and I'll actually do research. I literally found out we were talking about this like 2 seconds before we went live. So,
that's the fun, John.
Yeah, like I don't know if you remember Mayor Koch. So how am I doing? Yeah. All right. Now I'm talking about Mayor Koch. It's time to leave. All right.
Good night, everybody.
Bye-bye.